Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Good Brothers Wine Club, to our February edition. We today are going on a rocking road trip down the west coast of the USA. We are going from Washington State and Seattle in the north, the cool, wet north of Seattle. Wait, more on that later on, down to the searing heat of California. For those of you who are here for the first time, this is our wine club. This is what we do every single month. We put online one of these tasting videos. We send you out a pack of tasting wines and you get to taste along with me if you choose to. If you don't want to taste with me, you can turn me off now and just crack on with the wines. So why have I chosen West Coast USA? Well, for one of the main reasons is whenever we say USA to most people, whenever we mention US California wines, it's exactly that. People think of California, they think of heat, they think of Chardonnay, and they think of Zinfandel or Cabernet. Big, rich, heavy wines. But the West Coast USA is so much more than that. And as we'll see today, there are some brilliant styles of wines that you just need to try a little bit further from the norms. You get brilliant quality, and actually you can get a little bit of value for money as well. We'll talk about that, especially in Washington State. So as with the last video, those of you who were with us for Spain in January, I'm going to be talking to the camera now for about half an hour, 35 minutes. Between each wine, I'll pause for a little bit. You can then pause the video if you want to taste and check. And then we'll crack on. I'll be giving you a little bit of some nuggets of information. Quite a few of these wines I've actually been to and I know personally, so this actually is really close to my heart. The USA makes brilliant wine, and it's often overshadowed by those down in California making big, rich, buttery, mass-produced styles. The history of winemaking in the US, it all stems from as with most most American cultures, it's with the Europeans coming across in the 1700s, 1800s, bringing with them, one of the few things they brought with them was actually grapes, and they planted up their vineyards right up and down the West Coast when they settled and produced wines. Yes, when we think of American wines, we think California, we've said already. We think about Napa, we think about Sonoma, we think about all these really iconic vineyards up and around San Francisco. And this is where most of the quality wine in California historically has been made. It's up in around San Francisco. I said with Napa Valley up there, some of the most expensive wines in the world coming out of Napa. But of late, Oregon, which is the next state up above California, and then Washington, which is yet another state above, up on the border with Canada, have really started taking the mantle on and producing some crackers. But we shall get started, and we're going to go straight away to Oregon, and we're going to be tasting the Omero, get this right, Omero Pinot Gris, 2013 Omero Pinot Gris. Now, my business partner, Rory, is probably going to hate me for this. This was one of the first wines we bought at Good Brothers when we opened in May 2016. So we are coming up for our 5-year anniversary this year. I can't believe it's been 5 years, or nearly 5 years. It's such a long time. But we bought this, it must be the first couple of weeks we were open, and we put 2 or 3 bottles away in the cellar because it was just beautiful. We put it, it's going to age really well. And we haven't touched it since then. We've put it into the tasting here because I just think it shows such an amazing style. Pinot Gris from Oregon, really well aged. It shows that actually it's not, the USA is not just about young, fresh wines which just can be drunk now. It's about really age-worthy styles. So Oregon, and the key wine growing regions in Oregon is the Willamette Valley. Willamette Valley sits to the southwest of Portland, which is the main city up there. It's wet, it's cooler, really quite lush, brilliant, and you'll see a lot of Chardonnay, a lot of Pinot Noir, a lot of Pinot Gris and Riesling, so slightly cooler climate wines which don't work so well with the baking heat that you might get further south. So here we're Willamette Valley, southwest of Oregon, and we're actually in the Ribbon Ridge AVA, so the American Viticulture Area, the AVA. You see that quite a lot on American wines, which is just a smaller region. Think Burgundy. When you think Burgundy is a larger region, you think Côte Nui is the smaller region, and then you might think Voromene, that's the village. Okay, we're looking here at that somewhere between that village and slightly smaller region. Omero are, so hold this up so you can see the bottle. Omero are a tiny winery and vineyard owned by a couple who met at viticulture school, and they have been making wine here since 2008, if my memory serves me right. The whole premise here was to work with the land organically, biodynamically. As with most wines which we stock, it really is about sustainability. They own, I think it's 18 hectares of Pinot Noir and 4 hectares of Pinot Gris. So Pinot Gris is really not their forte. Pinot Noirs they make, they are brilliant, absolutely phenomenal as well. But this was just, this vintage as well, was just blindingly good, which is why we stored it away. We want to bring it out for you guys now. So it has had 8 years of bottle aging. 8 years. This is going to be absolutely special. So let's just pour some out and let's have a little look, shall we? So straight away in the glass, we can see that there's a wonderful colour to it. I love this little goldenness there, which is just fantastic. One thing that shows us is development. So the darker a wine becomes, white wine becomes, the more oxidation it has had, the more it's turning, more it's becoming richer. Now, Omero, as I was saying, are completely organic. They believe in a whole earth viticulture, which means that everything that they produce and everything they waste on land goes back into the land. So all the vines get cut in the winter, they get burnt, the ash gets scattered to put more nutrients back into the earth. They don't use mechanization, so everything's picked by hand. It's organic as well, so we don't use industrial fertilizers and pesticides. It's all left a little bit to the earth to mind the grapes. The climate here is perfect as well. So as I said in the introduction to Oregon, it's slightly cooler. We've got a slight maritime influence, but yet still continental. So we get nice warm summers, cooler winters. We get lovely cooling breezes coming in to freshen up the wines. The wine itself, now this is from an east-facing slope, so what that means is, again, that it gets the morning sun and doesn't get the evening sun as the sun sets in the west, so therefore it gets the cooler sunshine hours. The morning sun's always cooler, the afternoon, evening sun's always hotter, so we've stopped the grapes from baking by having them on east-facing slope. Yes, some at the top will get a little bit of that, but some at the bottom will stay really fresh, and that just allows us to keep that real acidity, freshness in the grapes. So when we get the wine at the end, we still have that high level of acidity to keep the wine lively. That's really important for aging wines as well. Having a really good balance of sugars, of tannin, of acidity, having great balance, phenolic ripeness of the grape is really important. Interesting, this wine's actually barrel fermented as well. So when we ferment most wines, we tend to put them in big stainless steel vats and we leave them there. This isn't. This is barrel fermented in French oak. So we get that lovely oak texture coming through, a little bit more grip on the palate because of that, which is, we're not getting the big butteriness. And that's not what this is about. This is about fermenting in oak and getting a little bit more oxygen coming in and developing the wines as it goes, which just adds to the richness of the wine. And it is a slightly richer style of Pinot Gris. You can get Pinot Gris which are really fresh, zippy, a little bit of spice on them, but this is on the other side. This has got a little bit more body going on, more Alsatian stylistically, which is definitely a good thing in my books. So having a little smell, wow, that nose it's a lovely sort of rich, spicy sweetness, bit of honey coming off there. That's absolutely gorgeous. Wow. That is a cracker. So if said we've got honey notes, we've got spice, we've got pepper, we've got sort of tropical fruit coming through there. If you look at the notes, I'll put this down. You've got sort of it's like mango and sort of quince on there. Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. But yeah, that's still, it's got that racy acidity, so the freshness in the mouth, which just keeps bouncing around, keeping it alive. I said 8 years in bottle. It's just still so zippy and zingy. That is absolutely gorgeous. So that is the Omero Pinot Gris, and that is from the Willamette Valley, from the Ribbon Ridge AVA. Absolutely cracking. Now, back in 2016 when we bought that, we probably were selling it for around about £25 a bottle. This now, to buy this, well, you can't buy it. I mean, you just cannot get hold of this wine anymore. I think we have the last 2 bottles in the UK. The last 3 bottles in the UK. So unfortunately, this is not one you can go onto our website and buy. This is just for you and for your knowledge and for your sort of wine education about looking at how great Pinot Gris can develop and change. If you were to buy that now, you'd be looking at about £40 a bottle. And that brings me on to my next point. Those who were in the Spanish tasting previously, you'll notice you had 5 wines. Now we've gone 4 this time round, and generally there will be 4 in each tasting pack, but we've gone 4 here especially because the quality of the wines you are drinking tonight is absolutely top drawer. We'll talk about them as we go through, but yes, that was a £40 bottle of wine from a wine shop. Amazing stuff. But I'm going to let you have a little taste through now. If you're tasting with other people, you have a little chat. We'll just give you a couple of seconds just to get ready for the next wine as well. So, moving on to the second wine of the evening, and we are in California this time. Now, as I said, when we say California, everyone automatically thinks of Napa, of maybe Sonoma, Monterey. These are very small regions up in the north around San Fran, but actually the vast majority of wine made in California comes from between LA and San Francisco. In fact, there's one of the largest producers of wine in the world, has their, I think it's about 150-mile long vineyard down the Central Valley in California, which is just, it's mass produced. There's so much wine generated in California. However, again, staying with our quality focus, the next wine we are looking at is the Quinero Vineyards Alice Grenache Blanc. This is a stunning wine. It's imported by a friend of mine who I've known for years and years, James from Tiger Vines. We buy it up here. This is from Paso Robles. So Paso Robles as a viticulture area is about halfway from San Francisco down to Los Angeles. We're looking at much hotter days here. Climate's much more aggressive. That being said, here we're very lucky that on either side of the valley, we actually have a mountain range, and they run along latitudes, so they run laterally, which means in the mornings we get this lovely we get lovely suction of cold air up from the sea, which brings it up and envelops the whole valley, and cools it down. Likewise, it then just dissipates back out in the morning, and the sun can then do its job on the Grenache. So the whole area is historically very geared towards more Rhone-style winemaking. And what that means is actually the grapes that you find here in the Paso Robles tend to be things like Grenache, Syrah, Grenache Blanc, Viognier, real southern French style. And again, think climate. Think it's a very similar climate to the Mediterranean here. Hot days, mild winters, a little bit of cooling in from the sea breezes, but not a huge amount. So you need grapes here that can really stack up to that climate. Now, the Quinero cellars, Quinero Vineyards, are owned by a chap called Anthony Yunt, who has come about for very long winemaking history. He has started Quinero in 2008 again, so again similar sort of time frame to the Omeros, but it's actually a side project. He's the head winemaker at another winery, Villa Creek, which is another large scale, and he's starting Quinero as a side project to do something organic and biodynamic. So yes, as we were saying here, everything again is organic, biodynamic, and very sustainable. This is 100% Grenache Blanc. So Grenache Blanc is a hardy grape. It's really lovely and textural and rich. And if you look at your notes there, I'm just going to pull them up now. I've put here is this actually dials back the ripeness. Grenache can get really, really quite aggressive. And if a little skin contact, it can get really punchy with high tannin levels. This doesn't. He's actually made it quite an un-Californian style. So I was in two minds whether to put this first or second. I chose second just because actually I want to start with a bang with that Pinot Gris. But here we have a really elegant wine. It's not your typical California style. Again, going back to what I was saying before, in California, you think big, hot, spicy, you think lots of rich texture. This isn't. This is zesty. Loads of mineral freshness coming through. So white pepper, lemon, I've got here peach and pear, bruised apples. Again, it's got that little touch of honey or honeycomb that we saw in the Amaro Pinot Gris, but it's just vibrant. So actually, that's taking that after the Pinot Gris. That's brilliantly refreshing. It's got enough weight in there to allow it to come second, to allow it to be the second wine we taste, because that acidity is really fresh, and then you've got enough power, enough flavour. Absolutely brilliant. As I said, totally un-Californian. This you'd think would be much hotter, much richer. Not at all. And made by a lovely, lovely chap, making brilliant wines in the Paso Roble AVA. So that is the Quinero Grenache Blanc. And again, I'll give you a couple of minutes just to have a little taste and enjoy. Welcome back. And so we will move on to our third wine of the night. Now, this is an absolute treat. Actually, I didn't touch on price with the Quinero Alice. That's about £26 a bottle. But we are going on to probably, in my opinion, the wine of the night. Those who have watched my YouTube channel or have watched previous, Pinot Noir is one of my great varieties that I love. I got into wine in 1999-2000 in Burgundy, where I started winemaking at Louis Jadot as a young college dropout. But here we are we're looking at the Storm Pinot Noir. Now this is from Santa Barbara County. And sorry, if you keep seeing my eyes flick down, it's because I'm trying to work things backwards on a camera and a video. So if you see me doing this a lot, it's just trying to work out which way around the bottle should go. So here we're in California again, and we're in Santa Barbara County. So lovely Mediterranean climate here. And this Storm is owned by Ernest Storm, a South African who studied in South Africa, worked in Stellenbosch, and came across to California in the early 2000s. He set Storm up in 2013 to be a really different style of winemaking. And again, you'll see this. It's like a broken record here. A really different style of winemaking that's quite authentic. He's not trying to be mass produced. He's not trying to make big. He's trying to make much more restrained, elegant styles of wines, which California can do, and America really does do well. So yeah, he's looking. He came across and he looked for a cool climate site, which he found in the Santa Barbara County. Cool for California, anyway. He focuses on Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, a little bit of Sauvignon Blanc, but just absolutely really quality-driven wines. This is his straight Pinot Noir from Santa Barbara. Now this, again, we'll talk about, I shouldn't say price now. This is a £50 bottle of wine. This is a big quality bottle of wine. Me putting this wine into the wine pack means I don't make any money out of this for this month because it's just so expensive. But you know what? I don't care because it's so good. If you look straight away at the wine itself, this is lovely and light in colour. It's also a little bit cloudy. Now we'll come on to that later on, but the colour is all because of the clones of Pinot Noir used. Those who don't know about clonal selection, this is quite a historical thing that winemakers have done. I mentioned Burgundy a moment ago. Burgundy is the birthplace of absolutely quality Pinot Noir. from Dijon down to Lyon in the south or in the middle of France. Burgundy runs north to south between those two cities. And anyone who's anyone in the Pinot Noir and Chardonnay world will have wanted to, if not been able to, work in Burgundy at some point, because that is where the best Burgundy, Pinot Noirs, and Chardonnays are made. Now, what then happens is when those people move away somewhere else, like California, the winemakers will request the vineyards and the wineries in Burgundy to cut some of the vines and send them across. Obviously, going through customs and all the right channels, because they want to use the Burgundy clones by taking some of the actual plants grown in Burgundy and replanting them in a new climate. Now, all the vines that are grown here, grafted onto American rootstock, are Pommard clones, which means that from the village of Pommard in Burgundy, they've taken them and they've planted them. I think there's 4 different clonal selections come across. It sounds really quite geeky, but so important in the quality aspect of Pinot Noir. This makes brilliant, brilliant wine. So here again, we are working organics and biodynamics. This goes without saying. It is a wine which has a beautiful texture, light and fresh. It is elegant. It's just wonderful. A little bit about the winemaking process, and I'm looking down here what I've put down. 10% whole cluster fermentation. So what this means, 10% whole cluster fermentation, is when we take the bunches and we put them straight into a fermentation vessel. Normally what we do is we put them on a sorting table, we take out all the bad ones, we then put them into a destemmer, which would then take all the stems away, so all that goes in normally is just a clean berry. However, here, 10%, we put the stalks in as well, we put the pips, we put everything in there, leaves if there are any, because that adds more texture, more tannin into the wine. It's seen 7-day cold soak, which means everything just sits there before fermentation starts to allow things just to break down. We use French oak here, 20% French oak, because the difference between French oak and American oak's got a much wider grain, so the wine can get into that grain much more and extract more of that flavour from the wood, which is why you get big, hot, spicy, rich styles of wine using American oak. Using French oak, which we are here, 20%, you're getting a much more elegant use of oak, which is why it's not so big and in your face. So this is one of the things, when you're looking at a California wine or American wine and you're scared of it because it might be too rich, just check, if you can, what oak has been used. Because if it's French oak, actually you're probably going to find it's more restrained and more elegant. So yes, it's seen a lot of skins, 14 days of skins, and what that means is, again, it's about extraction of the colour and the tannins. So actually, Pinot skins are quite thin. There's not a huge amount of colour in there, and there's not much tannin. But the longer we can leave the soak there, the longer we can let the skins leach out all that colour and that flavour, the more texture you have in the wine. And 11 months on lees, and that's, again, the lees are the fine particles left after fermentation. So things like dead yeast cells, any pips or anything that's left in the bottom of the tank. It's left on these because that allows more texture, more flavour to be taken out of over time, and just enhances the whole wine. And the more structure we have in a wine, the more age-worthy it's going to be. So here we're looking at 2016 vintage Storm. So we are looking at a 5-year-old Pinot Noir from Santa Barbara. This, in theory, could last 10 years more, and still keep improving. And finally, the last of the winemaking bits here is there's no fining or no filtering. What that means is that we don't pass anything through the wine to remove the haze. Normally we'd pass them like isinglass or milk or egg. We would just literally pass it through the wine, and all of the particles which are suspended are charged positive. They'd be attracted to whatever it is we've passed through, and you'd clarify the wine so it'd come out really clear. That's not happened here. As you can see from your sample, it's hazy. There's no clarification here at all, which again, say it again, it just adds more into the texture. and gives a real sense of place. And that's one thing this wine really does. Storm are all about the wine giving a sense of place. They do lots of single vineyards, and they predominantly do single vineyard wines. This is their entry level one, £50 for entry level wine. It's not quite entry level, but this is a blend of different vineyards. But their key is they choose specific sites which give a real sense of place, time, vintage, personality, and that's just what we love about wine. But getting on to the actually tasting part, it is just packed. So slightly savoury on the nose there. You've got that sort of savoury, tart, cherry, raspberry on there. I put here a hint of orange peel. I get that orange tangerine coming off the top. Lovely. Then you have, like any good Burgundy will, you've got that forest floor, that kind of farmyardy little funk going on, which is just brilliant. And then because we've had that oak in the fermentation and the aging, we've got some spice, some very subtle sort of cayenne pepper, those black pepper, white pepper. Brilliant. Absolutely luscious. Oh, so that is just so soft and supple. It's rich but soft. It's got tannin, but fine, silky tannins that just melt away into the back palate. It lasts and it builds, and you get that savouriness and the freshness and the liveliness. That is just yummy. It's amazing. Yeah. I don't know what more to say really about it. It's just sensational stuff. But we have one more to taste, and actually we're moving now to one of my favourite growing regions. I had the privilege of, I was in Storm, or near Storm, 5 years ago, but that was on the back end of a trip I did to Washington State. I was the guest of Chateau Saint Michel in Washington State, taken across there for 8 days on a buying trip with some former colleagues. And so Chateau Saint Michel is actually, they are a brilliant company. They're a big company in the States. Chateau Saint Michel, try saying that after 4 samples. Wine estates actually own 13 or 14 different wineries, including the iconic Stag's Leap wine cellars in Napa. Those who don't know Stag's Leap wine cellars is the winery that beat the French at their own game in 1976 in the Judgment of Paris, when Stag's Leap went up against the Cabernet went up against all the top Bordeaux, first growth Bordeaux's, blind with a French tasting panel, and all the French judges chose the Stag's Leap wine cellars as their best wine, thinking it was French. One of the most important moments in wine history. That if you haven't read about it or know about it, go and look up 1976 Judgment of Paris. There's also a film called Bottle Shock, which stars Alan Rickman. Brilliant film. Definitely give it a watch if you haven't seen it already. But so they own these 13, 14 wineries all across the States. And actually the winery up here in Washington, Chateau Saint Michel, it makes the most widely drunk and widely produced Riesling in the world in their Chateau Saint Michel estate Riesling. We have it in store. Now, that's not a bad thing, because everyone says, well, if it's that, I think they make over 1 million cases of 12 a year, so 12 million bottles every single year. So people say it's a bad thing. Why? Actually, what happens is they are sustainable, and they believe in looking after the planet. They can't be organic, and they can't be biodynamic just because of the scale of the business. But what they do is they actually almost give their wine away. I mean, the Saint Michel Riesling, which we're not tasting today, but is in store, should be about twice the price for the quality, but it's not. And every single year, the top Riesling producers get together and they keep saying, how can you keep producing wines this good and sell it for that little? It's because of the scale of the thing. But Chateau Saint Michel is based up in Washington State. And Washington is a fascinating place. When you fly in, they call it the state of two halves. You fly into Seattle and it's lush and it's wet and it's probably murky and smelly, and you come out of the airport and you go in downtown, you go, right, where's the Space Needle? I can't see it, and it's up there 10 meters in front of your face, but it's just the fog and the har. It's really Scottish. But then you go for a drive about an hour and a half to the east, and you go up over the Cascade Mountains, which suddenly turns into a beautiful alpine pass. So it's like being in the Alps there. It's pines, it's high, there's skiing. You get to the top, and then you go over, and another half hour down, you're in desert. And I don't mean it's a bit hot, and this is proper desert. It is sand everywhere. I mean, yes, it's infertile, but things still grow there. But it is absolutely scorching. We went from about 20 degrees in Seattle to about 40 degrees 3 hours later, having gone to -2 on the Cascades. And this is where the vast majority of Chateau Saint Michel's estate wines are grown, in the Columbia Valley River Basin. Now, Columbia Valley is the third largest river, I think, in the North USA, North America, and it's the reason why viticulture is able to happen here. You'll find beautifully kept vineyards, some of the best quality vineyards in America on the banks of the Columbia River, and that is where we are with the last wine of the night, which is the Chateau Saint Michel Columbia Valley Syrah. This is the 2017 Syrah. You'll notice that of all the wines tonight, I have not tasted any Chardonnay, any Cabernet, or any Merlot. And that's on purpose, because that's not everything that USA makes. They do everything like this. The amazing, amazing wines. So the reason I picked this is, instead of the Cabernet or Chardonnay or Riesling or anything else they do, is again looking at the quality of the Rhone style wines that are made up here. Syrah is exactly the same as Shiraz. It's just a way of showing a difference in style, the way it's made. Shiraz, Australian, is big, hot, spicy. Syrah tends to be more elegant, a little bit more sort of leatheriness on there, really well integrated. One of the beautiful things about this wine is that it is so food friendly. I did a tasting a couple of years ago now with the former head sommelier at Hotel de Ban in Glasgow at One Devonshire, Alan, and a good friend of mine, and he said, "Oh, I'm not really expecting much from this." Taste it and went, right, in fact, I've got 7 different things this can go with. It is brilliant, and they've listed it ever since. And it's just one of these wines which just, you let a sommelier taste it, they don't expect anything, and actually their minds are blown about the quality here. Just before we taste it, actually, there was a very interesting study done 4 or 5 years ago in Decanter, where they took Bordeaux, Napa, Tuscany, and Washington State, and they plotted the points. Actually, I think it was Wine Advocate, Robert Parker, not Decanter. They plotted the Parker points for each wine against the price points. Now, obviously, a 99 pointer from Parker, a Napa wine, is going to be phenomenal. But you're going to be paying £400 a bottle at least for that. Whereas you take some of the Washington State wines at about £24, £25 a bottle, and they're still getting 94, 95 points. You actually plot on a graph the quality versus the price point. Washington State is one of the best value wine regions in the world. It is phenomenal, and we're going to see why now. So, picking up, you see definitely darker colour than we had with the Storm. That's because it's Syrah. Thicker skins, more colour, more tannin, more extraction. Oh, on the nose, it's soft and jammy on the nose. You've got lovely dark berry fruits. You've got a little bit of savouriness in there, a little bit of some meatiness. It's almost a ferriciness coming through. Oh, fantastic. Lovely silky tannins. Soft. You've got acidity. You've got that wonderful forward-looking fruit. It's just fantastically enjoyable to drink. This paired, when we were there, it was a tomahawk steak every night. That's all we ate. That's all we were allowed to eat. But that just worked. Absolutely amazing. This, price point wise, is about a £22 bottle of wine. Still brilliant quality. And that my friends, is it for the February tasting. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you had liked the wines. The Syrah, Storm, and Alice are all available through our website. You all get a 10% discount on your purchases for the month of February, which you just need to type in the code at checkout that you've seen. If you want to know more about wine in between these, please do go across to our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, look for Good Brothers Wine Bar. We have a channel set up there where we have 2 or 3 videos every week being loaded by my good friend and collaborator there, Ladislav Piljar, who's he's been in the industry for years and years in the hospitality industry, but has been made redundant recently. So we've decided to start a YouTube channel just to keep ourselves busy with that, and really good content every single week getting loaded there. Just go along and subscribe to that. If you have any comments, please do leave them. We're probably watching it anyway because you're here. And apart from that, I hope you've enjoyed it. I've been Graham Sutherland. I've been your host this evening. We are Good Brothers Wine Bar, and we are still here a year after this thing's all started, which is great news. Hopefully be open again soon to let you come inside and enjoy a glass of wine with us at some point in the future. But until then, keep drinking better wine, and I'll hopefully see you in March. Take care.